Welcome to the Puget Sound Underground podcast. We are the curators of the underground. We are here today with Will Jordan.
Yeah. How's it going?
Rapper, producer, engineer, songwriter, life explorer. Brother, what's happening, man?
I'm so happy to be here. I have swishy pants on, so if you hear like that's my cool pants.
That's what's up, man. We're flying.
Yeah.
We're flying.
Outer space pants.
Man, it's super good to have you here. We saw you last week at your show at Jazz Bones.
Yep.
That was really awesome, man. You brought in some cool talent. It's just a really cool spot for you guys to perform.
Yeah, that's Jazz Bones is like an iconic Tacoma venue. I remember some of my first shows were there, like opening up for the other acts and like just like being excited to be able to play a concert in Tacoma and have people come. So to like for this much time to go by and to be able to like put other people on stage and have like opening acts has been really cool. Like give people their first shows.
We'll definitely talk about that here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But let's start with you, man. I mean, it's, everybody has a life story of what brought them to where they are, and I'm really passionate about what you're doing and how you're trying to bring up people behind you and just, contributing to the community around you and the music scene and everything that you've got going. But I really want to dive into you. Where'd you grow up? What kind of kid were you?
Right. Oh, man.
It all started.
Yes, it started on April 25th, 1989.
There we go.
I was born at Auburn General Hospital.
Nice.
My dad was working there, and they were living in Tacoma. They were living on Hilltop at the time.
Nice, yeah.
But it was like he was like, I'd rather have, to my mom, like I'd rather have you here with me so that we don't have to worry about like me coming all the way back and driving you, or me being late, or me missing out on something. So I'll just bring you to where I work. You work with the doctor here and do all this stuff here. So I was born in Auburn. I'm the fourth of 6 kids.
Dang.
But yeah, my dad's a preacher. And my mom, when I was growing up, my mom's been a lot of things. My mom's a teacher and like a counselor and all these different stuff. But back at that time, I think she was just she'd been running a daycare in our house. And then after that, when I was born, I think she was just with us for that time. Yeah. Which meant my dad was working 9,000 hours a week.
That happens.
Yeah, with a lot of kids on Hilltop in Tacoma in the late 80s. So
very different time from what it is now, man. Very different time.
Yeah. So my parents are from, my dad's from Cocoa Beach, Florida, and my mom's from Daytona.
Nice.
They moved up here a little bit after my second oldest brother was born. And to my dad moved up here to help out at the church that I grew up going to. Yeah. So I was in a very interesting situation because I grew up in a very the church that I was at was very conservative. Yeah. My parents were not very conservative, so that was already a thing. And then we're on Hilltop, which is very exciting and action-packed. Right. But then we're also in Washington State, which is not known for being that. Right. So it's like there's a lot of different. It's like being frozen inside of a cup, inside of a boiling pot of hot water in the Arctic. Like there's a lot of different
external
elements.
factors
going on.
Right.
So I was usually just confused because I didn't, like trying to figure out who I am. Like, am I this or am I that when I go outside? It's this environment when I go to school. It's this environment. Right. So I think that for me, and I was kind of like the middle child in a way because the fourth of 6, and then my oldest brother, when I was 8 or 9, he was in prison for the next 9 years. So that shifted the whole family dynamic. So I went from being the third from the youngest to being in the middle. Yep. And my second oldest brother went from being like the baby, like the second oldest to being the oldest and taking full responsibility. So we all had to readjust and figure out our roles and how we were going to navigate. But so life was confusing. I think that music was one of the only things to me that made sense. It had rules that you could follow.
100%.
And there's also kind of like a lottery feel to it because you could get lucky. You could play the right notes and find something that you've never heard before, experienced before. So that gave me some stability in a very, very confusing, unstable area.
Yeah.
So,
totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
What do you like to do as a kid? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. What kind of things were you into?
I think I was into a lot of stuff. I had my younger. So there's 6 kids. The oldest was Joseph. The second oldest was Michael. The third was my sister Danielle. Then me. Then my younger sister Nicole. My younger brother Chris and my youngest sister Nicole. So it's 4 boys and 2 girls.
Yep.
And the family was kind of like. It was like almost like split in half because there was like the first boy girl and then the second boy girl.
Yeah.
And we were all so far like. Now it's like, okay, my sister's 4 years older than me. That's not that much.
Yeah,
but when we were kids, she was like an adult to me.
Right.
So me and my younger brother and sister would hang out. Me and my younger brother Chris were the closest. So we would go out and explore the neighborhood, which was really like a 1 block radius. But to us, it was like that picture everything behind you where there's mountains and trees and cabins and stuff. And we had a best friend named Larry who had a huge backyard, and I think he had a tree house. And then our other friend Jonathan had a tree house too.
Sick. And
then like we had a junkyard behind us that was like this big like just compound. There's a bunch of metal and doors and it looked like I don't know if you ever saw that movie Hook.
Yeah.
Where he had that little house with the clocks.
Absolutely.
They had a house in the junkyard that was like on top of this big thing that it looked just like that, and we could see it out our back window. So it was like
that's awesome.
There was a lot of like there were a lot of things to do
it's
and
adventure.
It was very. I lived in a really cool like neighborhood with lots of trees.
Yeah.
And we lived across the street from Stanley Park, so there was a park over there, and then a lot of trees and big yards that felt like jungles. So we just did a lot of like exploring and like. Finding bugs and killing them, and like building forts and climbing and jumping out of trees and just the stuff that like a lot of kids would do. We were just doing it next door to drug dealers and crackheads, but I didn't know at that time. So like, I liked playing outside. I liked playing basketball. I liked playing video games. We had a Sega Genesis.
Oh yeah, Sonic.
Man. Yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic 2. I still remember some of the codes, the Streets of Rage and things like that. And it's funny because a lot of those things have a big impact on like who I am today and the music that I do and the things that I do and like what gets my mind moving or what excites me like visually and sonically as well. Like for my show, which at the Jazz One show we were supposed to do it, but we didn't get a chance to do it because we were having issues with the projector.
Yeah.
But my whole intro video is based off the Streets of Rage like title sequence, where it's like it starts off and it's in Tacoma and it's just like dialogue going on, and then
that's awesome.
My friend Rel, who's also amazing, like I don't know if it's called a graphic animator or
okay, yeah,
something like that. He does graphics and he does animation, so I'll just call him that.
Yeah.
But he like just like tweaked it and made it fit and like made my own little character.
That's
and
sick.
Yeah, so like that's all. A lot of that stems from like playing video games as a kid, and I think video games were cool because it was an escape for me.
That's right.
So like when stuff would get too hectic outside or we couldn't go anywhere,
and
we didn't know why we couldn't go outside or what was going on. It was just we can't go play today. Not knowing that there was just a drive-by the next door the night before. But we couldn't play, so we would hop on the game and escape through that. But I liked video games. I liked basketball. I liked music. I wasn't really good at music, but I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you remember your first musical influence being? I mean, how early does that go? What do you remember really connecting with in the very beginning?
I mean, there was always – my story is so, like – it's really like the typical like hip hop rap come up story when my parents played music around the house and we listened to soul. So it was a lot of that. And then I remember my earliest memory of being like blown away. I have 2 of them. One of them was we were at the First Night Festival in Tacoma, and we were I remember having like the greatest times of my life. And just being a little kid, like, and everything felt so big. And there was this band called True Steel, and they were playing like the steel drum music. And I remember every one of them. I remember there was a lady with these big like glasses selling tapes, and everything just seemed so professional and so like well done to me because I was just a little kid. I didn't realize that they were just performing and selling merch and like just trying to make it. But to me, it was like, wow, they're famous.
You're right.
But I loved their music, and my parents bought one of their tapes, and they would play some of their songs. I still remember some of like the patterns and the different rhythms and stuff they're playing right now. And I must have been 3.
Dang.
Must have been 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then And then another one was the first time I remember playing piano. And this is weird to me to think about because at that time I didn't realize how young I was. I remember we were at this program called Super Club where they would come. Life Center Church would come to Hilltop in different neighborhoods, like on the east side and stuff, and pick up kids and bring them on Saturday mornings to go hang out and play and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was this band called Infusion. Who actually I know it's funny. I ran into the guy that was their keyboard player recently.
Nice.
But they would play these songs and they would take like kind of like what Kanye's doing right now, where they would take like songs and turn them into gospel songs.
Yeah.
So they took "Crush on You" by Lil' Kim. And redid that and did like another version of it. And I remember loving those chords.
Yeah.
And going back home and trying to play those chords. And I don't know how old I was at that time. Whatever, I was born in 89. I don't know when that song came out, but I'm maybe like 5 or 6 or something like that. And I went back home and tried to play those chords on our organ that we had in the living room. And like, I didn't get them right. Yeah. But I had like my own version that I would play. And so from anytime I was by a piano, I'd have my little song that I'd play. Yep. That was like, this is my time to shine, so I'm going to play these 4 chords. And to me, it was just like, I'm just doing what I do. But I didn't realize, like, dang, you're a little kid, like, figuring out how to play something that you heard.
It's a pretty complex thing.
Yeah. But that was the beginning for me. Is like I was comfortable, like, making up my own little things and my own little songs and doing my own versions of them. And then when I turned 8, I wanted steel drums for my birthday. And my dad, instead of getting me those, he got me his xylophone, which was like... I was devastated.
Sure. kind of a different context,
it's a different thing,
different instrument.
Right. But the cool thing was I went and started learning how to play it and stuff and making songs on it, and it's a lot like a piano. Like the keys and stuff are set up the same way as a piano is. So I started learning how to I didn't know this at the time because I didn't understand what scales were and things like that. But I remember my brothers and sisters always playing. I forgot to say all my siblings played instruments growing up.
Nice. Okay.
My oldest brother was like a saxophone genius. My older brother Michael played trumpet. And my little sister Danielle played clarinet.
Nice.
So all I heard all day was either music playing or scales.
A lot of influence there.
Yes. And I didn't know what the scales were, but I liked hearing them, so I would play them on xylophone.
Yep.
And I didn't know this, but I started developing like relative pitch at an early age and like training my ear. But I was just trying to play songs and play things I'd heard.
Right.
But yeah, that was the first time I remember like listening to music and loving music was definitely True Steel, which is so far from what I do now.
Absolutely.
But, like, you never know. Yeah, you never know. Oh, a crazy thing is, so I was in Portland a couple of years ago, and I was at an event celebrating someone's birthday. I think it was Mel's birthday. This lady from Seattle, and we were all out there at this like art compound, and there's an artist out there named Blossom that we kind of just like ended up kind of standing next to each other. I think we had a mutual friend that went to go do something, so we're just kind of standing around, and I'm like, oh, like, you know, when you're with someone you kind of know, and the other person that you really know leaves, and you're like, oh, do I leave or do I?
This is awkward.
Yeah, like I don't want to kill the vibe, and I'm super like I'm so introverted, so like for me I can and also very sensitive, so I feel all the. I'm like, oh, I don't want it to be weird. I don't Let me just say something and like start some conversation, so that she's not just feeling uncomfortable.
Smart.
Yeah, and so we start talking, and somehow we just like we get on the subject of like, because she's an artist, and we start talking about like music and what things we're up to, and I just kind of throw it out there like I want to get back into like I want to like start recording like live instruments and stuff like that. And she was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I was like, I want to like find some people that play like steel drums or anything like that.
Yeah.
And she was like, wow, that's crazy. My uncles have a band and they play steel drums. I was like, what, are you serious? Like that would be crazy to like get them in the studio.
You have my attention.
Yeah, you got me. And so I tell her, I'm like, when I was a kid, I was 3 years old. I remember going to a festival, and that was when I first fell in love with that sound.
Yeah.
And it was a band, I'll never forget them. It was a band called True Steel. And she was like, you are lying. And I was like, what?
God.
She was like, those are my uncles.
Them.
And I was like, what? And I went on my phone and showed her my website, my bio's on there. And my bio talks about like the first time I fell in love with music at the festival from that band. And we were like, what in the
world.
What are the odds of me being in Portland?
Right.
And like so
that's crazy.
But yeah, so True Steel, one day I'll reunite with them, but yeah,
that's what's up.
That was the first memory.
Nice.
Yeah.
So when did music start to become a more serious, like, hey, we're gonna put all of our attention in this and do this full time? I mean, when did it become real for you?
I mean, I think I was 19 and I was working I was working at General Dynamics.
Yeah.
I was a striker mechanic.
Nice.
And they call it that, but I was really just putting together kits and but I had all the parts memorized and stuff. But if somebody put a striker in front of me and asked me to do, I would have no idea.
Right.
We saw them I might have seen like 4 of them like the whole time I was working there, but it was like the coolest. It was like a big deal when they would come and bring them by.
Absolutely.
And so I was I was just talking about this Sunday about my boss. His name was Will Gray, and I was told him. So at church on Sunday, one of the guys that goes there, his name's Jermaine Ogden. He's a drill sergeant, and he was talking about how when he goes on base, he can't wear the hat.
Yeah.
Like they make him take it off because it just like.
It freaks people out.
And my dad
it would freak me out.
Yeah, my dad's a Marine, and he's been retired.
Yeah.
He's been out for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
And they always go back and forth like there's always like a Army Marine thing. And
absolutely, yeah.
But he said he was like when you first brought it by, he was like you were and my dad's not like my dad's a big like
sure.
is a very like strong very manly guy kind of guy.
Yeah.
Never ever back down. And he was like I'm not gonna lie. He was like, when you put that hat on, he was like, it made me very uncomfortable. He was like, it took me right back to. I was
That's
like,
right.
wow.
That's right.
I was like, and I was telling him, I was like, man, I remember. I was like, I can't even imagine that because I still remember my boss from GD, and he was a sergeant major, and I was like, just something about his he never did anything to me. I never got in trouble, but it was just
there's an aura around those people, man. I 100% understand that.
I remember being at Safeway, and I was in my car, and I saw him walking to his car. I hadn't seen him in a while because we worked in Auburn,
right?
And he just happened to be in Tacoma, and I just stayed in my car, just quiet,
and just down a little,
just waiting for him
look
to
at
leave. Just waiting for him to leave, and he was like always nice, but
right.
So but yeah, so I was working there, and I ended up getting let go because I just was young and dumb,
sure,
and trying to like look out for everyone else and not looking out for myself, and ended up like being late for work because of studio sessions or being late for work, trying to give other people rides to work so they wouldn't be late. And so they let me go, and I ended up having to move back to my parents' house.
Yeah.
Which was not my plan at all. I think I was 19.
Never is, man.
Never is. And so 19 years old, working. I went from just going to studios to like actually kind of like engineering full time and being like an in-house producer.
Yeah.
And I get a call from my girlfriend, and she's like, "Hey, don't tell anyone." I mean, no. Well, I guess don't tell anyone, but that's a different phone call. But
right.
She's like, "Hey, we need to talk." And I'm like, "Oh
boy,
that's never what I want to hear. What did you find? What happened? What did I do?"
Right.
And she's like, "We're gonna have a baby."
Oh,
and I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I might have been. This is after 19. This is I had been doing. I don't want to mess my story up. I've been doing the studio stuff for a while after that. I think it's maybe about a year in.
Yep.
And she's like, I'm pregnant, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna put music on hold. I'm gonna see if I can go back to the warehouse and get a job there, and like I can just we'll be fine. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like my mom had my oldest son when she was 17, so for us it was like we'll be
right.
We're not too young.
Yeah,
like, this is better.
Totally doable.
Yeah. Also, but at the same time,
not ideal.
Not ideal, and I'm making like $50 a week, so there's no way I can do music and sustain this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to work, and then we'll just figure this out from there. And music can wait.
Yeah.
And I'm making myself sound like a whole lot more calm and patient. I was like
freaking out a little.
Yeah. Like I was.
I know the feeling.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And so she's like, don't quit music. Let's give it 3 months and see what happens.
Dang. That's powerful.
That is powerful.
That's powerful.
And I still didn't even at that time I didn't even appreciate it for what it was, because in my mind I'm like, what can I do in 3 months?
Right.
Like, what is going to happen in Tacoma in 3 months?
It's not a lot of runway. Yeah.
That's a very short runway.
Yeah.
But I decided, okay, well, let's do it. I'm not going to tell my parents, because if I tell my dad,
oh man,
that I got this girl pregnant,
right,
and I'm living with them.
Right.
My car has no sound system because it got broken into.
Oh, jeez.
And I can't even afford to put speakers in, like basic speakers in it. I don't know anything about raising kids.
Yeah. More external factors, man.
Yeah, a lot of different things going on.
A lot of things floating around.
And yeah, and then I know he's going to ask me, like, knowing my dad, he's going to ask what my plan is.
Right.
If he doesn't kill me, he's going to ask
right.
what is your plan? What are you going to do?
Right.
And if I tell him my plan is to
90 days of playing music.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's not a plan.
Yeah.
And if I'm living under his roof, I follow his rules.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let me just not say anything. I'm known for, like, waiting until the last minute to ask for help just because, like, I always try to figure out. There's been a lot of times where I would figure it out and nobody ever would know. But this is one of those times where, like, I didn't know for sure if this was a good idea or not, but I'm going to just keep it a secret and just go for it.
Dive in.
And that moment was like the catalyst to my whole career. Like if she let me give up, or if I had like gone a different direction, things would be a whole lot different. Not only for me, but for a lot of other people that were around me at the time. We end up writing some songs, sent some music out to this guy in LA named Tommy Rodham. And Tommy's an A&R for a record label called Beluga Heights. Beluga Heights was responsible for our artists at that time that were pretty big. It was like pop music. His brother was a producer named J.R. Rodham. And they had an artist named Sean Kingston. They had Jason Derulo and a few other people on their roster.
Nice.
So I was like trying to write pop records, and they were all terrible songs that I was sending. The first one I sent got them excited. It was a song called Pretty Girls. But then after that, it was just like a whole bunch of just mediocre, poor attempts at pop music. And then eventually we sent one that they liked again, maybe like a few weeks later. Yeah. And they sent a record back for me to write to. I write to that song, send it back to them. And what's funny is it was a song that I had written, both of these songs actually. Pretty Girls was a song I had written in my car, in my truck, because I had no sound system, so I would just be driving around singing. Right. And I was looking for a reason to put like a bunch of girls in a music video. Hell yeah. Like, without it being like, I was like, well, how can I get away with this without like seeming like I'm trying to get away with it? So if I write a song about pretty girls and just showcase the beauty. Pretty girls. It doesn't even have to be crazy. I love it. And so I wrote Pretty Girls because of that. And then I wrote another song because I had no sound system and I was frustrated and I was trying to write like an arena rock song. Okay. I think I might have been watching like Metallica videos or something like that and was like, nice. I'm going to make this record that's going to be like an epic song that can play at football games. Yeah. And it was like, I came to win, to fight, to conquer. And that was like my idea of it. Love it. So they sent us this beat, and it's not anywhere near an arena rock song at all. Yeah. But the song I'd written worked to it, and so I sent it off, or we recorded it, sent it off to them. 3 months later, we get a phone call, and this is after like we had actually got to take trips to LA and meet them and hang out. Nice. Yeah. Talked about possibly doing a publishing deal because they liked that we were writing music consistently and they liked our work ethic and stuff. And they were interested in possibly doing something with me as an artist, and maybe even giving me that Pretty Girl song to keep as my own record. Nice. So we do that. We get back. They call us and they're like, hey, don't tell anybody yet. This is the phone call I was talking about when I said the phone call. He said, don't tell anybody yet because we don't know for sure. But we think one of the songs you wrote might have gotten picked up by Nicki Minaj. Whoa. And we think that Rihanna's singing the chorus. Whoa. And I'm like, oh.
That's it. I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah. Yep. I raced home. Yeah. With no music playing. Yeah. And I ran into my room in my parents' house. Right. And I had a computer and I had this like flat screen monitor that I wanted to mount on the wall. Yeah. So I used a zip tie and fastened it to the back of it and then drilled some screws and another zip tie into the wall and like tied them together. Right. And so I had my monitor on the wall just hanging down. Right. Like that's where I like that. Yep. I just want people to know like that's where my life was. That's where it was. That's where it was. This is and I was excited about that. Like, that's epic. It's on the screen in front of me. I didn't even have a desk. It was just a bed, another bed, and my computer and the keyboard on top of the computer, and then this wall-mounted zip-tied screen. And I go on this very small service area for my mouse because my computer, my PC was the was the desk, so I have this much space to go
and
figure out
right.
if Nicki Minaj's track list is out. And sure enough, this is her first album. She was on fire at that time. And I found it, and number 5 was a song called Fly. And I was like, is that the song?
Is that it?
Is that it? I was like, but mine was called To Fly. But I guess could be the same thing.
Yeah.
No, that couldn't be it. Do more research. I find an interview of Rihanna talking. She was, I don't know where it was. I would like to find that because that was a really like big moment for me.
Yeah.
And she talked. They're asking her like what she's been working on, and she talked about doing a record with Nicki.
Yeah.
And they're like, wow, do you know what your favorite song on the project is, or your favorite something? And I don't know what it was. And she was like, yeah, I think this song is called Fly or To Fly or something like that. And so I'm just like, my mind is like, it's forcing me to believe that this could happen, because I couldn't like get it through my head that this could really happen to me. Like the odds of it and the timing, all those kinds of things. Like, and for me, things had never really happened before. Yeah. I'd been through a lot. I have to explain this because it seems like, yeah, you were just working. If there was a boy who cried wolf, when it came to music, that I was that guy. It was always like, this Jay-Z's gonna come do a song with us,
right?
And like, oh, okay,
we'll see.
Yeah, right. Because so many times it had been, this was my shot, this was my moment, this was my chance, this was my time, right? And then I'm back at home, or I'm back at square one, and I'm starting over again. And a big part of that was because I didn't have the blueprint for success. I just knew I was waiting for somebody to put me on, or I was waiting to get discovered. And I hadn't quite discovered myself, which was a big important lesson.
It's everything, man. Yeah.
So that was the time where like, it started to kind of like hit me like this could work. I still didn't really believe everything. Yeah. Because I hadn't heard the song, which is crazy that like all that stuff was in my face and I still couldn't like accept it. Right. Because I couldn't, just the way I felt about myself and my life so far, like things I didn't know that I had a great life. I thought everything was against me, and I thought things were kind of set up for me to fail. Right. Just my mindset at that time, and I wasn't someone that people were betting on. I was just like there, and it was like totally. So for mind you, remember I was working at the studio as an engineer. I wasn't there as an artist. Yep. It wasn't like this is the guy that's gonna lead us into the music industry, and we're gonna sell millions of records and get Grammy. It was just like, oh, that's Will. He engineers. If you need a session, he'll record you.
He's in the background.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I was in the background, and then when everybody leave, I'd be in that studio singing my heart out and performing, looking at the Tacoma Dome like one day, and I had like show tracks and performance tracks with no shows. I was just like performing and practicing for that moment.
Absolutely.
So it was that, but to answer your question, that was around the time when I was like, okay, I can do this full time. We ended up getting a publishing deal a little bit after that. The album came out. We signed with Universal Music Publishing. I think it was November, and I started getting paid like a monthly amount to write songs and do music full time. And that was like that was when like people started to kind of believe like, oh wow, okay, I always knew you could do it. That's crazy. I always believed. For the last 5 minutes since I found out that you got signed.
Well, and that's such a huge thing that you brought up. I mean, there's so many people that are in that mind state that say, I'm just going to hustle and I'm going to focus on my skill set and I'm just going to wait to get discovered, but they don't know who they are. They look at themselves in the mirror and they don't see what could be. They see what they want to see. They see what they've been told that they are. Right. And that's such a big deal. And the fact that you had that flip and you're like, look, other people can believe it or not. It doesn't matter. Like I'm going to put in the work and I'm going to discover myself. Right. You know, that, God, I cannot stress that enough. That's so huge.
I think that was, and that was the battle for me that like kind of what you said was like, was the fight between what I thought and what other people thought, and like how much impact that had on me versus like
it's huge.
The way I felt about myself was like I could only feel that way when I was by myself. When I was around other people, all my self-esteem was just I was like Naruto, where like I would this big giant thing inside of me, and the only time it would come out was when nobody could see it happen. And then it would go back inside, and it would just be me, just this kid that was by himself. Even though I had 5 siblings, it was still just I always felt alone. So like, that record and those different things happening was like the first time when people were like, oh, okay, maybe this could work.
Will's got something.
Yeah, something's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the shift that happened, and to give a little context.
Yeah.
You almost have an incubation program where you're taking younger artists that are coming up, that are looking for that blueprint, that are looking for that validation almost, and just looking for the path, and you're taking them to a spot that they never even knew existed. Wow. So, you kind of have taken a little bit of focus off of you and selflessly said, hey, let me turn around real quick and see who's behind me.
Yeah.
And you've got some talent behind you, man. And you've got some people that, are inside of your circle that are really pretty good. And I know you're mentoring them.
Yeah.
When did that shift happen? When did you decide to do that and to turn around and to say, hey, let me help some people coming up behind me?
Yeah. I mean, I think there had always been, it was, it's weird. I used to always try to help everybody, and I used to put a lot of people like ahead of myself, because I wanted to, like, that was my way of meaning something to somebody. That was my way of being important, or being like loved or cared about, or needed. And so I had to actually and that's why I ended up losing that job, was because I was trying to do everything for everybody else.
Yep.
And so I had to learn how to take care of myself. And go through some things and be by myself.
Balance.
I always tell people, you find yourself by yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta, so like working in LA and taking those trips out there alone, and being in the studio alone, and working with Sam and all those different people, just like having time to focus on myself and develop myself, gave me a chance to like understand what was important about music, understand what was important about like how important it was to develop like the inside, and like get your heart right and your mind right, and your spirit right, before like trying to entertain people and trying to provide the energy for a room full of a lot of people.
I mean, that bleeds through the music.
It's supposed
100%.
And what's funny is like it took going through some stuff.
Yeah.
You got to get cut a few times for that to work. So I got to go through. I was fortunate enough to like be like working with Luca Heights and with Tommy Rodham.
Yeah.
They were, I don't think they knew they were doing this, or maybe they did, but they did some real, I think coming from being a songwriter and mainly focusing on just being in the studio, working almost like a servant.
Yeah.
And even as an engineer, you're kind of like a servant. You're coming from a place of service. So like I found my way through the door doing those kinds of things, and it humbled me in a lot of ways. And it showed me that like I even if I whether or not I felt like I was good enough, or whether people around me felt like I was good enough, I still had work to do.
Yeah.
And nobody was gonna just give me a shot just because, like, okay, you wrote a record, that's great. What else do you got?
Right.
So like it was like, dang, even with all this, I still got work to do. So it humbled me, and it forced me to start from. It was like graduating from middle school into high school, where like you just the other day you were at the top of your class, because in Tacoma nobody else had done this.
Yeah.
But now I'm in LA, now I'm in Beverly Hills.
That's
and
right.
This is just enough to get me in the door.
That's right.
And now I got to figure this out. And I got to keep up with these guys, or just get drafted into the NBA. Like, okay, that's great that you were great in college.
Right.
You won a championship. We don't care about that here.
Right.
You could get cut. So
you're the rookie.
Exactly. So it gave me chance to be the rookie, and to just be the worst in the room again, which was important for me. And build myself up and go through all the different things I need to go through, learn how to put emotion into music, learn how to take what I was going through in life and what I was living through and the struggles I was facing at home, and put that into those songs, and use the struggle to help me get out of the struggle. And going through those different things and doing label meetings and things like that, and getting accepted and getting rejected, and accepted and rejected, and being forced to like figure out my own way of doing things, helped me to understand like the ups and downs that you're going to go through as a younger artist, and the things that like where your mind goes, because a lot of people that I work with, especially like people that may be my age or that have been doing music, or maybe that aren't artists, maybe they're just like executive people or industry people or management. It's hard for them to understand why artists act a certain way or carry themselves a certain way at a certain age. And I remind them, like, and I understand it because I remember being there, and I try to remind them, like, they can't hear you right now. Their brain isn't even fully developed. Like, they're 20, 21. Like, they're not, they're here, but they're in their own, like, in their own world. They're just an avatar walking around.
Right. Well, and there's so many. I mean, we talked about external influences, man. I mean, at that age, it's
there's a lot of stuff going
multiplied.
on. Yes. So like I being super sensitive and overly empathetic, it helps me to go back to those times and remember what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and to try to connect with people and meet them where they are and help them to get to where they're trying to go. So I think that going through that stuff myself and getting to really experience that stuff on a really high, intense level with a lot of pressure on me and a lot of things going on at home and a lot of things going on in the industry,
right,
made it so I could talk to people and care about where they're coming from. Yeah. So basically, there's a long story between the Nicki Minaj thing,
right,
and me deciding to like try to do it independently.
Yeah.
Because I'm still signed as a songwriter.
Sure.
But on the artist side of things, I was just like, this is not going to work because I can't be Jason Derulo. I got to be myself.
Yeah.
And I am not good enough at what I want to do to get away with being myself right now. So in order for me to be myself,
it's huge.
I can either just be alone in a room and make obscure abstract music that maybe myself and a few other people appreciate.
Right.
Or I can be alone in a room and develop myself and work on what I want to do and polish what I like and develop what I like and push myself to be great at doing what I want to do, so that other people can appreciate it. Nobody owes me their support. Nobody owes me a chance. Nobody owes me their belief in me. It's up to me to do the things that it takes to earn that stuff. Like at a concert, I would never force somebody to put their hands in the air or yell at them to put your hands up. Right. It's my job to make you want to do that.
Yep.
If I put my hands up and you want to do that, that's great. But I can't get upset because you're not like following what I'm telling you to do.
Right.
If you're not jumping up and down, I keep like, you guys are a bad crowd. Like, I gotta make better music.
Right.
So there was a really important moment when all that hit me, and I realized, like, dang, I'm not making the money I want to make, I gotta get better. If I'm not making this, I gotta get better. If I'm not getting this, I gotta get better. And I went back home and just started working on getting better and started trying to understand the science and the reasons behind why certain songs affected me a certain way, and certain songs made me happy, made me sad, maybe gave me chills, didn't give me chills. What different things did these things have in common? I've always been into like analogies and patterns and things like that. And so I would try to find the patterns in music and like what these different things had in common. Why the End of Earth song by Michael Jackson, like every time I listen to it, like how does he go there with his voice? How is he able to sing like this with this kind of passion and pain and emotion about the earth?
Right.
Like he's not singing about like something that's like most of us would be like fired up about, or that would get us to yell at that or scream or like let out that much feeling. Yeah. And he's doing that with the earth. So if he can tap into that on a song about the earth, I need to be able to tap into that for sure if I'm talking about like a loved one or losing someone. Yeah. And I realized like, wow, if I was and a lot of artists I work with, they've heard me say this. I was like, if you've been because people try to be cute and cool in their songs and they want to be smooth. Of
course.
And I'm like, okay, so you're singing a song about breaking up with this person, or you walked in and this guy or this girl was in the room with the person that you love. Right. And they're cheating on you, or you're cheated on. Yeah. You're not going to walk in there and say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you guys doing this to me? You're my best friend and you're my wife. Right. And you two are doing something terrible to me. I never want to see you again. I'm going to leave.
That's not the emotion.
No. Right. Yeah. I was like, you would be losing your mind.
Right.
Don't come into the studio if you don't have that same energy. Bring that energy in here with you. You have to have that same emotion. And it doesn't mean that every song needs to be on 10, but you need to have the range. Yeah. Which means that you need to learn how to get in touch with those emotions and those feelings. Yeah. So a lot of what I would do for myself, I had to fight first I had to go through some things. Yeah. And then I had to fight to get into the studio and give myself permission to sing about those things and talk about those things and express myself while in that moment. Because I needed to get the muscle memory to know this is what it feels like to sing from this place.
100%.
That way I don't have to actually be going through those things to get to that place, but I know what breathing. It feels like.
Yeah. Yep.
I need to know what it feels like so that every time I need to, I can go to that place. And I don't want to have to be hurt or devastated or heartbroken to be able to put emotions on my music. So I was just fortunate to go through enough pain and agony and despair to get a lot of practice. But then time went by and I learned how to package that, and I got better at mixing. I wanted to get better at producing, understand songwriting, understand pockets and cadence and melodies and things like that, and what made them good. And I studied people like Max Martin and Rod Timberton and like my favorite songwriters and producers to figure out like, what are they doing? What do I like about what they're doing? What do I not like about what they're doing? And what things do they leave room to improve on? There's no reason. I feel like with where technology has gone, I look at what Michael was able to accomplish in the 80s and 90s and 2000s with what they had. And that was at the time, like Bruce Swedien had like the state-of-the-art equipment and was doing all this crazy stuff. And now it's however many years later, and we're still like, we have auto-tune and all these different things, and we still can't even do what they were doing back then. So I'm like, what how far ahead should we be? Because that struggle should have evolved by now.
That's right.
Like, why are we limiting ourselves? How come, like, the saxophone has not always been here.
Right.
Trumpets have not always been here. Piano's not always been here. Somebody created those ideas.
That's right.
Why did we stop making things, or why did we stop making good things? How come nothing new has come along? So, like, where is there room to grow? Why have we limited ourselves to what's here right now? Like, what else is there? What else can we make? And how can we make it good?
That's huge.
I never want to be the person that's doing something just for the sake of doing it. I want to do it well. I want it to work because I like it and I enjoy it. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but
you're good.
But so I just worked on like trying to figure out those different things and understand those different things, and it was also a time where just money was very, very tight. So I was like, maybe if I can like take these things and put them on paper, I can do like artist development for other people and teach them what I knew. I didn't really even understand the value of what I'd been through or my experience at the time. But people started coming in. I started doing like singing lessons and songwriting lessons and going over their music with them the same way Tommy had done with me and the same way Zach Katz had done with me, where they would. But the difference was when they were doing it, it was like I'm getting Skype calls and they're just cussing at us. It's like, this is terrible. This is crap. And so for me, it was like, but they because they weren't artists or songwriters, they couldn't really explain what to do to fix it. They just knew something was wrong, which was valuable. So I felt like my job was to learn how to explain why this isn't good, not just say this isn't good. So then I was like, well, I'm not going to tell somebody, I'm not going to critique somebody unless I can make it better.
Actual feedback.
So I would go through their songs with them and help them rewrite stuff, which was more practice for me.
Right.
And come up with different techniques, and they'd ask me questions, and I have to come up with the answers to those questions. And people talk about how, like, if you really want to master something, you have to be able to teach it to people.
Right.
So I started teaching artist development and doing it for other people, and also doing it for myself. And then it wasn't until maybe last year's when it really got real, but a couple of years ago is when I started like just doing it just to help people and stopped worrying about money, which is hard to do.
Sure.
But like it's a lot of times I feel like money can get in the way of being able to help people that really need the help. And if I get sad when I think about how many people are missing out on opportunities and how many of those people that could create the next instrument or the people that could make the next other album can't even get in the studio because they can't afford it.
Right.
And I don't feel like there should be paywalls when it comes to creativity, especially just with where we are now, where it takes barely anything to put together a studio setup.
Right.
So giving somebody some free studio time would not kill anyone.
That's
It's not like people are paying $1,000 a day to do it anymore.
Right.
So like I'm not missing out on a lot if I leave this day open for people to come in and learn, and I can teach them how to use a template in 15 minutes. So let me just start like figuring out how to get more people in here and help more people. And then I had to figure out a balance because I was getting to the point where I'm burning myself out trying to help everybody again, and I'm not taking care of myself. So I had to kind of pull back and get my stuff together, get my life together. So I think around last year, in the summer, I was doing something I really did not want to do that day, which is so crazy. It's usually what happens. I'm doing something I don't want to do. I was doing a producers panel in Seattle, and everybody that was on the panel was like quitting and backing out last minute. And I was like, maybe I'll back out. They're not really paying me a lot.
Right.
Maybe. It's like, no, you gave your word. Just go do it. I know you're tired. I know you have a busy day that day, but go do it. And I'm so glad that I did. I went and spoke on the panel, and at the end of the panel, one of the people at the summit, I guess I don't know what it was called, like a producer summit or something like that. Sure. His name was Bryant, and he got up and said, "Hey, so I'm looking for like a place where I can meet people that are like-minded or meet people that like want to make music or create music full time, and that I could like partner with or collaborate with, or I don't know, like I'm looking for a place where I can record and just create and all that kind of stuff. And where can I find that?
Right.
And everyone on the panel is kind of like, well, you just gotta keep trying, and you're probably just gonna end up alone, and you gotta get used to being by yourself. It's a lonely industry, but like maybe I don't know, don't worry about it. It was just all depressing.
Sounds like terrible advice.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, this feels really weird. This feels like a movie. It feels like I'm like they're like, and so they're like, what? Maybe ask Will, what is Will think? And I was like, I'll tell you what. And I was like, I have a studio in Tacoma.
Yep.
I got a spot to record. If you come show up, I will teach you everything I know.
Yeah.
I won't charge you. The only thing that I require from you is that you show up.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yep.
Maybe a bit of a drive, and everybody's like groaning, like, we're not driving from Seattle to Tacoma.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like,
cool.
Thank you.
Then don't.
Because I am an introvert, and I do not know if I can handle this, but I know that somebody has to do it, and something's telling me to do it. So I was like, I'll tell you what. See that kid in the front row that's taking notes in his journal, which was the kid I just met. I knew from Instagram. He'd been writing me, asking me questions.
Nice.
Just random questions. I thought he was a journalist, but he just was a really curious producer.
Yeah.
So he happened to be there, and he was taking notes, and I was like, he's taking notes, so he must be responsible. So I said, give him your email and your information, and he'll get in contact with you and let you know the details about the meetup. We'll do it next Wednesday at my spot in Tacoma, and he'll give you the address and everything.
Yep.
And so that was secretly my way of being able to try to sneak out of there.
Yeah.
Because I had a concert after that event, and I didn't want people to, they would do like the thing where they circle around you and ask.
Right.
So I was like, give him your information, and then I'll get in contact with him, and we'll set it up. So we set it up the next Wednesday. Maybe like 13 people came by.
Wow.
And we sat in a circle, and I asked them all, like, I said, I want you first. We have a green room, which you guys will come by afterwards. You'll see like a little like open area that we do like rehearsals and stuff in.
Totally.
And I was like, first I had them help me clean up, straighten up the room.
Yeah.
And I watched to see who did what and
so
who,
key.
And who like helped, who sat down, who was just hanging out, who was trying to be the class clown, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I paid close attention to that.
Yeah.
Then we had a meeting, and we all sat around in a circle and hung out and stuff and just talked. And then I asked them all, I said, I want to go around the circle and say your name, who you are, who you want to be, the things that are stopping you from becoming what you want to be. And then I also want you to say what things you can bring to the table and what things you need from the table.
Yeah.
And then by the time we got around that circle, it was like a small little family. And because everyone knew like, oh, I need a photographer. Oh, I do photography. Oh, I need a videographer. Oh, I have a studio. I do this. You can come shoot there. Or my mom has this, and my mom has a club. And so it was just like everybody got to kind of just connect and get to know each other. And so they're like, well, when can we do the next one? When's the next meetup? What is this called?
Right.
And I was like,
what are we?
Yeah, what are we doing? What's our name? And I started calling it Camp. And Camp was the thing. It was a name that I had in mind because I always wanted to do like when it comes to goals, I have a lot of goals and dreams and big plans. And one thing my younger brother Chris told me was like, you don't just set goals, set habits.
Yeah.
Which is really a little cool gem. But I had this name in my I have a note called names of things that don't exist, which I think is what I'm going to call my book. I'm either going to call my
Love
book.
it.
Yeah. My book title would be either that or it would be How to Let People Down. But it's one of those two. Yeah. But so I had a name that I was just like, maybe that could be the name, because I wanted it to be like a brand or like something that just, I love the way the word looked and sounded.
Absolutely.
And I love the idea of going camping and stuff.
Love
just
it.
Where I'm from.
Yeah.
So we start calling it Camp, and they're like, when can we come back? And I'm like, maybe let's maybe like next month.
Yeah.
And one of the people that was there, a girl named Joyce, she was going off to boot camp, so she wasn't going to be able to make it. So we're like, well, could we do it sooner? And I was like, well, maybe, okay, what about 2 weeks from now? And then like, when I think I said 3 weeks, they're like, what about 2? And I was like, okay, I can do 2.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And then
all right, guys.
I come to the studio the next day. I think it was a Thursday, and we started like this Instagram group chat, and somebody, I think it was Brian, posted in there and was like, hey, can we come by today? And I was like,
jeez.
But I was like, I looked around, and I'm in the studio alone. There's nobody else in there. And it's a big like compound. I'm like, not big compound, but it's like a big little office space. And I'm like, nobody's here. I'm just here like listening to old songs I did and like trying to get the inspiration to like mix this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't, and this was a rough, in my life, this was a rough time for me, just creatively and career-wise and stuff. I was getting ready to put music away for good.
Yeah.
Because stuff was not going the way I wanted it to go. I had put in a lot of work. And did some stuff that I thought was good stuff, and I was not getting the response or the feedback that I thought I wanted, and I didn't have the energy to make it better than what it was. I was just at the end of it, like I can't just keep getting better and nothing happened.
It feels like a tidal wave.
Yeah. So this was that time where I was just like, okay, maybe I don't have anything else to do. I guess I can do this. And I thought I was making some good money at the time because I was getting streams. I was getting money from streams, which I later on found out was not my money.
Right.
I found out it was actually going to the wrong. It was from someone else that was. Someone else was managing our account, and so it was coming to that account.
I got you. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, I got money. I can take care of this. Let me just help these kids out. And but that's important because finding out that wasn't what I thought it was is what that kind of lit the fire to get me to go on tour and get on the road.
Right.
And meeting up with those kids and doing that, the work with them, they actually ended up rallying around me and helping me put on a tour.
Oh, that's huge.
So the same people that were helping to clean up, it was 4 kids. It was Bryant, Cassius, Damon, and Shaylee.
Nice.
And they all ended up going on tour with, like, we had a secret plan to put together this tour. We weren't going to tell anybody because up until that point, I'd been trying to tour, but everybody was like, it's not time yet. You got to have faster songs. You got to do that. And like all these different things. So I was like, I can't wait until you feel like it's time for me to go. I need help. I need people around me, but I don't have anybody. But I didn't know that like me reaching out and trying to teach these people and help them was going to create a situation where they would turn around and help me.
That's so huge.
Yeah, they lifted me up and we started having like these like meetings and just meeting up and figuring out plans and I knew how to do all this stuff, but I'd never done it before. I knew it was supposed to work, but it wasn't real to me yet. But they gave me the kind of courage and they held me accountable, and it forced me to like take the steps to actually make it happen. And we ended up being able to like tour and stuff and put out music. And within that group, Shaylee was a graphic designer and a photographer.
Yeah.
Bryant knew a lot about music and business and things like that. Cassius knew a lot about music and business. Yeah. Damon knew about tech and like production and all that kind of stuff. So between all of them, it was enough to help me get things done. And also just to show people around me that like it's possible we can do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kicked off the whole like mentorship thing, and that helped me to kind of open up the doors. And then just the things that came along from that open up more opportunities and possibilities to bring other artists on to fill in spots and do different things. So so at that show, Shaylee was the one that was DJing.
Yeah.
So she started DJing. I mean, she was getting into it, I think, before that, but she started DJing for me after that point. And that's when they learned how to book shows and stuff. Yeah. And now she's like, they're managing a venue and DJing nice. For people and throwing parties and events and stuff. And nice. They're getting popping. Like they're almost too busy for me. Like
they're in it.
Yeah, it's like it's a real thing. So it's just been cool to see. And so what happens is, like I was saying before, people come in, and my goal is to develop them and to help them get to the point where they can do it full time.
That's right.
And so it's bittersweet because if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not going to be around long.
That's right.
So if I'm doing my job, then they're moving on and taking off.
Right.
So I'll constantly find new people to come on and help out or whatever. But yeah.
Man, that's such a powerful thing to have an incubator, because there are a lot of people. I mean, we live in a very different world. I mean, we talk about the rise in technology in music and how it affects the rise of an artist. Right. And how do we get that artist and how do we get that content out to the public? To the people who want to hear it. Right. How do we get people enthralled with the stuff that we're putting out?
Yeah.
That has categorically changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so different. I mean, if you were, obviously you sit down with a lot of these people. I mean, do you have like one big thing, like, hey, before you even write your first song, if you're an aspiring artist, like what's the one piece of advice that you give them? Is it that you need to find yourself? Is it that they need to understand the business side? I mean, what's the most important thing just to get off the ground? I mean, if I'm not an aspiring artist, but I mean, if I was, like, what would be that advice that you give to somebody who's in that spot?
Yeah, I would say to like identify. I would say to like look at yourself and look at where your. I heard an analogy with this lady. She had a big like vase. She had 2 vases. One of them was like perfect and the other one was like broken and cracked and had holes in it. And she had them turn off the lights. And first she said, "Which one of these vases would you want?" Everybody's like, "This one, the nice one."
Yep.
And she had them turn off the lights, and then she pushed a button and a light came on, and there were lights inside of the vases, and she turned the lights on.
Yep.
And she was like, "Now which one do you want?" And they're like, "This one, the cracked one."
Yeah.
And I've always thought about that, like if you can find where your holes are, or where your breaks are, or your wounds, or your weaknesses, or your scars, those are the places where your light's going to shine through. But you have to. I believe that everybody carries a bag of rocks. Regardless of who you are, you got a little backpack and it has some rocks in it.
Yep.
Some people have one rock, some people have two boulders, some people have a whole bunch of really tiny pebbles, some people have a little, maybe a pound of sand.
Right.
But everybody has their different things that they're carrying. Yeah. And I feel like the more sometimes people with a lot of rocks in their bag get frustrated because they see people with an empty bag running circles around them around this racetrack that we call life.
Yeah.
And they can't understand why these people get to just breeze through life and everything is so easy.
Right.
And what my job is, or what my goal and my dream is to teach people that bag of rocks is definitely making you stronger. The problem is you cannot access that strength until you learn how to get those rocks out of that bag.
That's right.
And I believe that art is a way of processing those rocks and getting rid of them and healing yourself from that pain that you've been through.
Yeah.
I think that it's important to go through stuff and to experience stuff and to experience resistance and go through the crucible. But you got to do the work afterwards to get right.
Yeah.
Or you cannot tap into that strength. Once you let those rocks go, then now you can run a mile a minute. But as long as you're holding on to those rocks, you don't know how strong you are. You don't know that you're the strongest person on this racetrack because you're still carrying around what you've been through. So I want people to use music and use art or whatever thing inspires you. If it doesn't have to be a creative thing, it could be like real estate, like the feeling of like finding a property. I don't really know anything about how real estate works, but I could just say something that sounds crazy, but like whatever things that you get out of that, like finding that joy and using that to heal the stuff that you've been through. I think that's I feel like as far as creativity goes and music goes and the arts goes, I feel like that's my way of changing the world one person at a time, is like going and teaching people how to start from nothing and get to something, get to the point where you can make a living off of what you love to do. So when I talk with them, I usually teach them about, or talk to them about just how they're doing emotionally and mentally, and make sure that they're healthy. And
that's so huge.
Yeah, because I don't feel like you can grow professionally outside of where you are personally. And if you do, and if you get this gigantic crown that you're not strong enough to carry, it'll crush you. So you got to do the work that it takes to like be able to carry whatever you're supposed to have. It's usually like mental health stuff and again, I'm pretty sensitive, so I can usually tell when something's wrong or somebody's been through something, and I don't have any. My mom. I told you my mom had a lot of different jobs.
Right.
My mom was a counselor and a therapist for a good part of most of my life growing up.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that she was using those things on me, when she was getting me to express how I felt about and getting in touch with how I feel and talk about my emotions. And she's also always a great listener, so she taught me how to listen. So you wouldn't believe some of the people that come into the studio and sit down with me and tell me the wildest stories.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious! All the people that when I was growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and the people that were doing the most dangerous stuff and the wildest stuff, I always like secretly wanted to like be a part of that. And they're so tough and cool and brave.
Right.
But like, I realized that like I didn't have to go through that because I got to meet those people later on and learn from those stories. And see the damage that their experiences did to them, but also like I got to get the jewels and the gems that they got out of it.
Totally.
So it's not just like new artists and people that are like just getting into music. There's some people that are 50 years old that are still rapping and were doing work and stuff back in the day. So
we talk about finding yourself before you start producing content. I think there's, in today's society, there's such a external factor that says the love of the public, the love
Right.
of the consumer is
Right.
what drives our attention. And so they get
Right.
so married to that idea that they say, well, I didn't get as many likes on this song, or, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not popping here. And
Yeah.
so, and they let that affect who they are,
Right.
as opposed to being driven by their true north and saying,
Right.
you know what,
Right.
I'm doing this for me.
Right.
I wake up every morning and look at myself in the mirror and say, I'm doing this because it's what I love.
Right,
It's what I'm
right.
passionate about.
Right.
And they're not controlled by that. I think
Right.
that's a really big thing. And I think by starting the conversation by saying, no, we're not going to go in the studio
Right.
in day one.
Right.
We're going to start in the green room, and we're
Right.
going to talk about our passion. We're going to
Right.
talk about why we're even sitting in this room right now.
Right.
And by establishing that, you're setting up such a better trajectory, you know, such a better path, because it's for the right reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If I'm trying to be a rapper just because I want a Lambo on Instagram, like that isn't sustainable. You're never
Yeah.
going to win that game.
No, and if you
Not to say that you can't have that, or that's
Right.
not a bad thing. Like,
Right.
look,
Right.
I'm all about it,
Yeah.
right? But it's, you know, motivation is a big piece of that. And
Yeah.
I think by starting that conversation, because of all those external factors, right?
Yeah.
If I go on YouTube and look at rap videos, you know, I don't think I can truly identify their passion, their motivation through that. It's they're balling, right?
Yeah.
Which, look, again, I'm all about, but
Yeah.
at this level, it's a different game.
Right. You need a
so
solid
huge.
foundation
Yeah.
to build something that big.
It's huge.
Or it'll fall apart.
God, that's so huge, man.
Yeah. Yep.
Respect. So, what do you think the Puget sound in general, like growing up in Tacoma and
Yeah.
being in Western Washington, like
Yeah.
what do you think that impact has really had on your career and your life and just everything, man?
I believe that I heard I don't know if this is true. I think it's true, but I heard that some of the best grapes and the best wines come from Washington because
Okay.
of like the different soil and the
Yeah,
dirt that
yeah.
you can find out here.
Yep.
And the dirt is really like rough and like it's terrible. So
Yeah.
it's good. It brings character out of those grapes. And I think that just the scene that we have up here, like we have just enough to survive and just enough to bring the best out of someone. I think that for who I want to be and where I want to go with music and where I want other people to go with music, I think it's perfect for that because you can't make it out of here unless you're doing something great. Like you gotta
Yeah.
only like we have Quincy Jones,
Mm-hmm.
and we got Nirvana. There's a lot of bands.
There's so many.
But
yeah.
we have some legends that came out of here who got their footing here, like
Right.
Quincy Jones, we got Ray Charles,
Right.
we got Jimi Hendrix. And I think about like
Pearl
the
Jam.
Pearl Jam.
Oh,
That's what,
man.
so like I'm thinking about the people that came from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the things that like where the world would be at or where the industry would be at had things been different. Like when I think about No Quincy,
Oh, yeah.
it's like that my life changes.
It changes everything.
That changes,
It changes
everything. And so like I believe that just the climate around here, at least where it has been or where we came from, it puts you in a place where you have to operate at a high level to survive, and
Totally.
which I think is as good in a way, and I think it's also like important. Like once you like find success or you find some stability, it's important to like to like find balance and like learn how to like calm back down because you get out of that. We're out of the mud. We don't have to fight as hard. At the quicksand, you don't have to fight as hard. But like it trains you to like to try to be great and to do things at a really high level. Like what it took for me, I tell a lot of people like it's not always about how good you are, but about how good you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And so for me, when things wouldn't work for me, and I had to tell myself that to stay sane because I'm doing things and things are happening, and people are like, "Wow, this is incredible," and I'm like, "Thank you." I'm still trying to make friends. Like I'm still trying to make this happen.
Just
so like
doing the thing.
Yeah. So I'm just telling myself like, "You got it's not. I'm not done yet. I'm not where I need to be at." And so I think that just the fact that we don't have a solid music industry because there's not a lot of ways for people to make money off of it. I think that forced me to like get creative, and it forced me to learn how to mix and how to master and how to do all these different things. And it forces you to get creative and figure out how to make money and how to support yourself and survive.
Right.
And I think that that's good for creating like the groundwork for what's going to happen and what this area is going to be. But at the same time, I feel like your struggles should evolve. And so I'm trying to figure out like what it takes or how to my goal is to be able to create like a pipeline or create like a real blueprint so that people can, hey, okay, I'm somebody that's maybe even not even talented, but I love music and I'm passionate about it and I want to do this. What do I have to do? It's not even just about like I was born gifted and
right.
I've been taking piano lessons and singing lessons since I was in my mom's stomach.
Right.
But like I love this and I can't see myself doing anything else. I'm obsessed about it. I do it every single day. Yeah. But I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
I'm gonna do it no matter what. Could you at least give me some guidance?
100%.
Those are the people I'm looking for because that's who I was. I did not have it.
There's so many different factors.
Right.
We're not just talking about making a song.
Right.
There's a business aspect to this. There's
so much to it.
There's so many external factors there that if you ignore that, you're not paying attention to that.
Right.
It's only one slice of the pie. The music, the content's only one slice of the pie.
Right.
100%.
Someone was saying, thinking that what was it? They were talking about something. I think it was Ty Lopez. One of his videos popped up on Instagram. I don't know how I saw it. Oh,
yeah.
No, you're good. Okay. And I'm not gonna hate on Ty Lopez. That's cool. But he was saying something about how like a lot of people think that hard work and hustle is all it takes to be successful. And he was like, that's like thinking that like being good at shooting free throws is enough to get you in the NBA.
Yeah,
and that's so true. It's like there are so many different factors that come into it.
Yep.
And so like my goal is to be able to like provide support or at least have a program or some way to like some system or structure where people can come in and learn what they need to learn and get to where they're trying to go, or at least have the tools and a way to do it and leave it up to them to make it to determine whether it happens or not. Like that's when I want your hard work to be the engine, but I don't want you to have to like be responsible for knowing everything about the music business, and I don't want you to have to get screwed over.
You don't have to wear every hat.
Yeah, I don't want you to have to go through everything. A lot of people want people to go through the same things they went through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how far can we get if every single time if we're trying to run a relay race.
That's right.
And in order for me to pass you the baton, I want you to run and start all the way back there and come catch me. All right, now the next person that's going to get the baton, you got to go run all the way back there and then come. Like, we're never going to get anywhere because everybody has to keep going all the way back here and running to you. Like,
every single person that you bring on should be better and faster and more effective than you. I have the same mentality. 100%.
And if they're not, it's because you are giving them a run for their money. But they should not. You should not be. You should not get a head start.
Yeah.
They should be getting a head start if anything.
That's right.
And you got to be. If they're not passing you, it's because you are not letting them catch up. But you should not be setting them up to fail. You should be setting them up to win.
I love it.
And so I appreciate the struggle, and I just want it to be a new struggle. I want people. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, okay, how can we find like money for marketing?
Yeah.
For them, I want it to be like, okay, we have the money. What do we want to do?
Yep.
And then for the people beyond that, it's like, okay, we've done this. How can we expand this? How can we help more people? Like I want it to just grow.
Yep.
100 years from now, none of us are going to be here.
That's right.
And so when I think of it like that, a lot of things that I care about, a lot of things I get concerned about or distracted by do not matter.
Yeah.
And I want to focus on the things that are going to matter 100 years from now, like relationships and family and love and like legacy and charity and impacts, things that are going to impact the future.
Legacy.
So so
it's huge.
I want people to have a shot, and I want people to have a fair shot, and I want people to have support, and I want it to be I want them making it to be based on whether or not they show up and not whether or not they have money or whether or not they have connections or they know the right people. So
I love it. I love every bit of it, man. I think that's such a solid mentality to take. So what are your passions right now? What's on the horizon for you? Yeah. You know, we've talked a lot about where you came from and what you're doing, but what's next for Will Jordan?
Right. So I'm doing the stuff I'm trying to do. Which is a big deal for me.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, that means a lot.
Yeah.
So right now I'm working on getting my publishing situation straight. I think we talked about that a little bit in the interview at the Jazz Bones. But my goal is to get to the point where I can have like a joint venture set up where I can sign people as songwriters and producers. Yeah. And so they can be getting paid to like write music and produce music, and I will use that to develop them as artists the same way as people develop me, because I don't want somebody to be just an artist. Yeah. I believe that everybody can write songs, or at least know how. Even if you don't like doing it, you need to understand how it works and why it works and what works and what doesn't work, because if you don't know who you are, someone else will figure that out for you.
Yeah.
When they were talking about signing me, they had a meeting to talk about what my name was going to be.
Yeah.
Where I was going to be from, and what my story was going to be.
Dang.
And it was because I didn't have all that stuff together.
That's right.
And I didn't have a fan base, or I didn't have any following. So they had.
It's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. And luckily they ended up letting me just be myself.
Nice.
Which sounds crazy.
Yeah, I know it does.
And I have to give them props because like I still talk to Tommy to this day, and I still check in with Zach from time to time. But like the stuff they taught me and the risks they took, and like, cause when I think about who I was at that time, it was, I don't know if I would have seen me and be like, him.
Right.
Like, I would have
right. Yeah, that's
weird.
That's me.
He's quiet. Yeah, he's never going to be a star.
Yeah.
But they saw something in me, and they saw a piece that I didn't think anybody else could see. And so I want to be that for other people. I want to see the person that feels invisible.
Yep.
But so right now I'm working on getting my publishing stuff straight and being able to give people a chance to like make money off of making music.
Yeah.
Whether it's like just an advance, or it's a way where I can just hire them in the studio, or have them work in different jobs or things like that.
Yeah.
But that's the number one thing I run into, is that like people, they don't get to put the time and energy they want to into music. And I know for me, like, it's easy to say, well, I was grinding and working hard. But like, I started off in a good situation, in a good space, and things worked out, and it allowed me to be able to be in the studio for 1,000 hours a day to like work on stuff and learn this stuff. So if I want them to be great, and if I want them to be able to do more than what I've done, then I got to find a way to allow them to do that. This sounds like I'm such a great person because I'm doing all these things. I have to explain. I didn't explain that the studio I've been working out of is run by a guy named Ruford Henderson. Mm-hmm. Ruford is the guy that gave me a shot, and that's the reason I was even able to be in that studio full time.
Nice.
And doing stuff and learning stuff. Yep. His whole dream was to have a place for development and to teach people how to do stuff because of the way he came up. Yeah. So I don't want to make it sound like it's all starting with me.
Right.
It's like somebody looked out. I have a lot of guardian angels.
Team effort.
That are here on Earth that are like opening doors for me. So for me, it's just my dream is to expand that and to take what he wanted to do and do it my own way, and be my younger brother Chris also has like a foundation called Fabitat where they teach people about like art and painting and graphic design and breakdancing and dancing and hip hop and all these different things.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I want to have it set up where, and those for them it's like middle school to elementary school, middle school, high school. So nice. I want to be like after high school, they come work with me or they come work at the studio I work out of now. And then when they're ready to go to the next level, what I'm setting up now will be that next place for them to go to.
It's a huge pipeline.
So you can get placements, place records with different artists, learn how to write records, whether from all different genres, learn how to like work with an engineer and run a session, learn how to deal with A&Rs and producers and label people and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of different factors, man.
Yeah. So
well, I love what you're doing in the music scene, man. I think your incubation strategy is solid it's very selfless. I think you have the ability to impact the music scene here in the Puget Sound in a huge way.
Thank you.
And you're, just the way that you're looking at it, everything I just think is so solid. I think that's a huge impact. So we'll put all your socials in the description so people can reach out to you. Yeah. Follow Will Jordan, rapper, producer, engineer, life explorer, songwriter. There's so many different titles you got, man. Thank you so much for coming into the studio today. This was great.
This was awesome.
And I look forward to watching your career, man, and just watching everything blossom. And, I think there's going to be a ton of people coming in behind you.
Thank you.
It's huge.
Thank you so much.
Huge. We'll have a kick-ass day, man.
All right.